Hi there, my name's Sydney Belladonna and welcome to another one of my art tutorials. I'm gonna apologize ahead of time for the strange getup. We've been having a bit of a Halloween special over during my streams, and I like this outfit too much to change, so you get to deal with me in this background for right now. So up until now, we have done some pretty decent tutorials, I'd like to think. Getting you started with bodies, facial construction. I did one where I showed you how to draw one of my characters, and today we're gonna do two topics. We're gonna do arms and we're gonna do legs. We will have separate tutorials for hands and feet because I feel like going into those more in depth will, help people a little bit more. But for right now, we're just gonna be doing arms and legs because they're actually surprisingly simple and they're very similar to one another both in shape and design in general. So we're gonna hop over to my art program. I have it all set up, and we're going to get right into making arms and legs. So what we're gonna start with is we're actually gonna draw our torso. We're gonna draw a torso, not in orange. I'm gonna draw it with black. I'm using my sketch pen that I think I've shown before. So if you've already watched the torso tutorial, which you should have done, or you should go and do, this is our torso. Very simple, very easy, very quick to bang out. It's literally a square, another square, and then a line connecting them, and then you kind of fill in the meat in the side here. From the square, we get our rib cage. It is important that for this tutorial, you actually bang out the rib cage and define it. It's basically just a squashed down triangle in the chest here. And then you have these, the top part of your arms. And then I add a smaller triangle up here to do your traps that go into the neck, because these are the neck muscles. And these are actually really important for what we're about to do. You don't have to worry about the head so much, but for the sake of, filling out what we're filling out, I'm going to add in the face. No more details other than that, but here we go. So we have our, Greek statue that's fallen apart for years and years. No arms, no legs, and we're going to revitalize him. The way I like to start is a bit different than what most art tutorials will show you, because most art tutorials will show you to draw a circle to a circle to a circle. There's your arm. Good job. I don't like doing that as my entire base. What I prefer doing is carving out the side of the torso, because this is like your side. If you draw a chest from this angle, it's gonna look a bit more like this. You know what I mean? So you get this kind of side here where it's wrapping around, because it's important to remember that this is a 3D object. You're trying to mimic a 3D form in 2D. We're gonna give him a little belly button. So there's this side here, and from this angle, or from this line, we're gonna add, a circle. It's gonna come out just like a little bit, but then we're gonna go over it and we're gonna actually turn it into kind of diamond shape just on its side. And then we're gonna kind of mirror it on the other side. We're doing this foreshortened. This is like slightly turn 3/4, not super turn 3/4, but we're gonna get a little bit of that. Then from this shape, we're gonna drop down our line, and we're just doing a straight arm for right now. And your arm will bend at around where your rib cage is, and then your wrist will start around where the crotch starts, ends. So right where his dingling would be is where his wrist would be. From here, we're going to drag down 2 lines connecting the armpit. So like right here. So this is the armpit. And then this part here further down. And we're going to connect it at the bendy part. From the bendy part, we're going to do a very small trapezoid. And then we're going to taper this trapezoid down to the wrist. So it's a longer trapezoid. And that right there is how I draw my arms. Now you may notice something when it comes to how I'm drawing these, and it's that it's very blocky. It's very square. And there's a reason for that. And especially during my torso tutorial, I made mention of I prefer utilizing squares over circles, because there are some artists that prefer using circles. And this relates to something I've noticed a lot of people asking about in the Discord, and people wanting to learn about, which is perspective. And you can get a little bit of perspective training right now before I do a dedicated tutorial by simply going from circles to learning how to do it with squares and trapezoids. Learning this small construction and remembering how the arm is proportioned, it actually allows you to better foreshorten. Because with circles, you just start kind of stacking them in a progressive like height length, but it's not giving you any sort of like information on where like parts of the arm actually is. So when you're starting out with foreshortening, you get kind of lost in the sauce. You don't really know where you are. But if you're using blocks, you know, we're gonna draw our torso again, so we have a frame of reference. We now know that this side here is the side of the torso. So we're just gonna have our guy kind of like leaning back. He can be like casting a spell, so we're gonna have him like hold his arm out here. So we're gonna start with our shoulder, which is just our square. It's just a square. And I want it to get to here. And then I want the wrist to be out here. Now we know that's how to draw a 3D square, hopefully. And now we're just kind of able to connect these different parts. But then we add on top of it our extra details. Suddenly we're adding a trapezoid. And we know how to foreshorten that. Don't rotate the cow. Rotate a cube. It's way easier. And then suddenly, without hesitation, and with no warning, and a little bit of adjustment, and then we're going to take this down so that I can show you in real time. You've created, we're going to make that a circle. I know that goes in the face of what I've been telling you. But you have now just given yourself both the ability to shade in depth for the arm. You've given yourself an angle of which to be working with. And you've given yourself foreshortening. And that's why I prefer working with squares. Is because it's easier to foreshorten a cube, like a plank, because this side's smaller than this side. What you can also do is you can do a Phoenix Wright thing, and we're gonna do a really quick hand. You do a square again. You send out like a massive big square, and then you make a bunch of tinier squares. Boom. I mean, that needs like a little more depth to it. If you operate with squares over circles, you won't get as lost in the sauce. But circles are also important because if you're doing a rounder shape, you'd want to know how it's broken down as circles. This is just my little cheat shortcut how to get better at foreshortening. But in regards to arms, that's why I draw my squares. But you can use circles to plan out where things are going to be. But you just have to remember this proportion, which I'm going to mark out in red really quick, is your shoulder connects roughly at the top of where the body is. The bend of the elbow happens at the bottom of the rib cage, where the floating ribs are. And then the wrist will taper off around the end of the crotch. The rest of how you fill this in is just a bunch of rectangles. That trapezoid is just because if you look at your own arm, your arm has a shit ton of muscles around your elbow, because that's actually controlling how your fingers move, because your fingers are really delicate. So if you want to right now, take the time to hold that like bulbous part of your elbow or arm, your forearm, and just wiggle your fingers, and you will feel your muscles move around. Depending, I don't know how weird your hand is, but you will feel that. And that's what we're drawing here with this trapezoid, is all of that muscle, and then it tapers back down to your wrist. The reason I section off the shoulder part is because this is like the rotate part of your arm. I usually break down things that I draw into like sections that are easier to like dissect. So we have the shoulder, we have the bicep, we have the muscles, and then we have the forearm. And then we get the hand. Then we get the fingers. Those fingers are longer. Those are really small fingers. And then from there, what we're actually going to do is I'm going to go into a little more depth that I never went into with the torso tutorial, because I feel bad that I never did it. If you want your arm out this way, you need to maintain this swing. This isn't going to change because it's going out. It is still going to remain the same amount. It's like matter. You know, you can't make new energy. You can't add or take away new distance. See that? And then I also just adjust how I'm drawing the shoulder part, depending. Again, for me, it's I think of it like second nature, so I'm not actually entirely certain how to explain it in like a proper manner. But this is the best way that I've found for me to draw my shoulders, to figure out how they work. And then again, it just kind of goes wherever you want, and as long as you're, you know, you move your shoulder, your collarbone, kind of like match it, it's fine. It's like it works, whatever. And then we'll go at it from the side here. Right? I know I'm using circles, but it's how I plan things. This is where the shoulder is, because I always circle out where the shoulder is, and then I go lines afterwards. So then we're gonna go boop, and then we're gonna, from the side, the muscles aren't as pronounced, and you have your little elbow at the bottom there, which is just kind of like a little pokey, but it sticks out at where the elbow is going to bend. And you get that. And the best way to think about this from the side is actually to throw in a circle, because this line isn't just a line, it's more like a cylinder. Because your arm is basically on like a hinge. Not really a hinge. What is that? Spoke? This and this are going to rotate from this point. So if we actually go here and we select this, we just rotate that. But as long as we keep it in that same spot, and then we fold in the meat of the arm around that, and then the elbow will, the elbow bone, the funny bone will fall along. Best it will. You'll get that. And then because you're actually pulling this muscle up, this muscle is being worked. So what happens even if you're not trying, this part of the arm is actually going to go up a little bit. Because you are technically flexing, and then you can do a little definition of the muscle there. Now, of these, you know, tips that I just gave, hopefully what you're going to get out of them is blocky arm. I'm adding a hand for fun. Very quick, very full form. This is end of rib cage. This is top of rib cage. This is end of crotch, right? Draw it square. Draw it with squares and rectangles so that you can easily foreshorten it. Your shoulder is your base of where your arm is going to go. You bend at the elbow of the center here, where your rib cage is. And then, because of anatomy, these control your fingers. This controls your arm swinging up. Now for really quick, I'm going to take you to a pose. And we're going to swing like this. So I've shown how to draw poses before. Very quick, very dynamic poses. This, that, this, that. So, we've now drawn our very quick stick figure pose. What have we drawn? We've drawn the top of the rib cage. We've drawn where the head is going to go. We've drawn where our arms are going to be. Now, what's interesting is that the arm itself, if I actually extend this out a little bit, I'm going to mark this as best as I can. And then I'm going to swing it back in. No. The arm is... The bend of the arm is halfway of this section here, because this is actually where the rib cage would be. And then down here is where the pelvis would be. Oh, what's that? Our wrist is down there. So even in your sketches, these aspects of proportions are extremely important. And the sooner you get this down, as soon as you nail this kind of quick out there pose, you're golden. You have the pose. This in and of itself is fine, is perfect, is great. Then you start adding detail to it. So we're going to go in and we're going to actually use everything that we've learned so far in all of my tutorials. So we've already drawn the face. I've already drawn the square of the face. We're going to add in the eyes, which actually comes from my Elise tutorial, where I talked about how I do the top lid first and then kind of position the pupils and then add the eyebrows. And then we do the mouth. Then we're going to add in the neck. And the neck is going to follow the spine line, which is what this big line is here. Then we're going to add the side of the rib cage midway through here. We're going to add in the little squash triangle. We're going to carve it down the center here. We're going to add the hips, or the pelvis. I'm trying to draw a dude. I know he's kind of sassy, but I'm trying to draw a dude, so I'm going to make his top as like bulgy and like blocky as I can. There he is. Boom, boom. Get that pelvis carved out. Get that meat carved in. There's our guy. Now from here, we're gonna add that other squashed little triangle part for the traps, your neck muscles. And now we're gonna go in here and we're gonna add our square, our little diamond. There's our deltoid. There's our fucking shoulder muscle. Then we're gonna drop this down here. There's your bicep. Good job. And then because we know that it's bending at the elbow, our little trapezoid is actually bent here. And then we're going to drop this out. Technically, it would be a little further out. The trapezoid would be extending out of like this. And then there would be the muscle, the elbow, like connecting. And then, you know, I'm going to add in the hand, like on the hip, like that. Gonna make him a little broader because his arm is like really buff. And then same thing over here. We're gonna add the shoulder muscle. Then we're gonna do the bicep. He's a little more out there on this arm. I'm actually gonna tighten things up a little bit. See, I'm trying to follow this as best as I can. And he's a little posed, so it's kind of all over the place. But this is the part of drawing where feeling is more important than actually like nailing anything. Because that arm feels right. It might not be right, it might not be proportional, but it feels right. I'm also gonna thicken out his neck a little bit because again, he feels really kind of buff. And now we're missing his legs. So we're gonna put him off to the side. We'll come back to him later. And we're gonna get into legs. We're actually gonna hop back over to this and use this as our reference. I'm gonna copy paste that really quick. Good job. All right. So now we're gonna kind of lift him up here and we're gonna get to the legs. Now the legs, as you may have also seen in a previous tutorial of mine, we're gonna draw another little stick figure. My little advanced stick figures, my first tutorial, the one that I prefer everybody watch because it's really important. The legs are from the top of the head to the bottom of the pelvis, flopped. It's the same distance. That's how you get the legs proportional. And then halfway down the leg is where your knees are. And for me, drawing legs is really super easy. We're also going to lift this guy a little bit more. So we're just going to get his belly button. And then we're going to do our base, which is the lines. And I'm going to say that's roughly proportional. I'm going to say that's fine. And then we're going to take this line and we're going to cut it in half. And then we're going to go a little bit lower. So about there. And this is going to work on an arc for both of the knees because this knee is a little more out here. So the knee is like in a different position. Now, you just kind of connect like a little bit over the pelvis, just like a little bit over your pelvis block down. And then from your crotch down. And now if you like thigh gaps, you just determine the crotch, like where the edges of the crotch are, like here to there. So a little triangle like that. And you just kind of draw from there. And you're just kind of drawing out, you know, these more like plumed kind of shapes, like at this. But if you want to get, you know, more simple with it, you just do a straight line down to about where your knee is. If you want that roundness of a thigh, you go rounder. If you want it to be straighter, you go straighter. Then, right around here, you actually bow out your knee a little bit. You just add like a little curve. And then for me, I like adding the other side of it. So there's your kneecap. And then around your kneecap, oh, what's that? It's a fucking trapezoid. Holy shit. It's more of a square than over a trapezoid a little bit. It kind of looks like this. If you've ever seen like really muscular calves, they kind of have that like blow kind of thing going on. Like a butt, but like a calf. You don't have to go that crazy, but it's nice to kind of have this like shwoo kind of feel. Where it's like shwoo to shwoo. If you look at any of my art, hell, actually, I can just like stand up for a second. Whoop. I do it. Ignore the fact that I don't have any feet, but you can see where my thigh turns into my calf. Pretty easy, right? But then we draw that all the way down to where our toesies are going to be, where our feet is going to be. You can drop it down a little bit more. Actually, and you just kind of like bow it in. And bring it around to a circle. Now, I'm not going to have you not learn how to draw feet. And I'm going to give you like a really quick pointer on how to draw feet like right now. It's really, really easy. Which is just, you do a ball, you do a ball, you do a line, you do a line. You connect the line, like up, like that. And then you just go boop, and you go boop. Go boop, and you go boop. You just kind of like connect this part to the top of the ball, this part to the back of the ball. That. Top of the ball, bottom of the ball, top of the ball, bottom of the ball. And you just kind of draw over it again. You just kind of like homogenize the shape. Now you don't really need toes. That's how you kind of get that like that foot shape. And feet are weird. I'm not into feet. Never been into feet. Hell, even my model, as you just saw, got no fucking feet. I don't like feet. But I know how to draw feet. You can give like a little toe. A big toe. Make them like Roman sandals or some shit, you know? There you go. Legs are really easy. Because they're just two parts. They're not even like arms where you need that shoulder part. You just gotta know where they connect, which is this part and this part. The closer you get to the inside of the crotch and the farther away you get is how you get more leg gap. Some people like thigh gaps, some people don't like thigh gaps. I personally don't like thigh gaps. But you also technically have your butt going on back there because your haunches do that. So if you do have a thigh gap, your butt's going to be kind of visible from your front end. That doesn't look super safe for work. Y'all know what I'm doing. And bada bing, bada boom. Congratulations, you've just drawn legs. Now I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the arm tutorial a second ago. And actually show you how those things bend. So, for instance, we're going to draw our thigh. Which is, again, just kind of like this 2B shape. Here is where our pelvis is sitting. This is our pelvis. And we're just kind of going to have our calf drop down. So we're going to do our hinge. And then we're going to drop down our leg. And then we're going to do our hinge again. And then over the top of this hinge, connecting from here, we're going to do our knee. It's got like this kind of pointed shape because it's your kneecap. You're going to drop the leg down straight from the kneecap. And then you're going to bow out this little part. Just going to do a little bit of that. Then you're going to taper it back in. And you're going to make it a little rounder. And then the thigh and the leg kind of bend into each other and stretch. There you go. Fantastic. Who doesn't love this? And then, as you bend on the hinge, this bottom part of your leg is going to squish up a little more. So the more you go out like this, the more that you do this, the more that your leg, your thigh, is actually going to be sitting over your knee, or sitting over your calf. And then that becomes that instead. Your kneecap is surprisingly like mobile. It moves a lot. And you get the dumpy truck in the back there. The pelvis there. So you have that swinging hinge, and this kind of adjusts. It kind of moves from up to down, depending on where the leg is. See that? And then the same thing with foreshortening. If you watch any of my animation streams, I usually will draw my character, Elise, who also has a tutorial. You can learn how to draw her yourself. I'll usually draw her like landing, and she'll be landing like this. She'll have her foot down, her foot back here. She'll be like doing a superhero pose or whatever. This doesn't necessarily need to be her. This is just like a pose, like a cool pose. But you can see that I'm blocking out this thigh and then using this portion of the leg to drop down. You can block out your legs pretty easily if you just use squares instead of circles. Then after you have your square down, you can round things out and smooth things out more from there. You start off blocky, you get smoother. It's like 3D modeling in a weird way. You start off really blocky and you block out what you want, and then you carve out more and more of the actual detail that you're interested in. So on top of all of that, we're going to go back to our dude. Where was he? There he is. So now we've got our dude. We've got our sassy dude. We're going to zoom in on him. And now we're going to do the same thing. Now see, we're going to go from here, but I'm actually going to raise it up a little bit because he's leaning. Boom. We're going to drop that down just a little bit. Boom. Drop that down a little bit. Now this knee is lower down. And then we're going to bring out our trapezoid. We're going to give him that like little bow. As you get more away from the front of the leg, because this is the front of the leg, if you go to the side of the leg, one side is going to have more of that trapezoid than the other. And then that's going to have the knee kind of jutting out like that. So for this, you know, one foot will be kind of like spank. How do I do it? How do I draw a foot? Like a spank. And then the other foot will kind of be more like spank. Use triangles and squares to draw your feet, by the way. It's so much easier. But he is way off with his back foot, so we're going to make that a little more flat. Boom. He's super sassy. Look at him. And see, I connected this leg to the crotch, this leg also to the crotch. This leg kind of goes up and around to his pelvis. Same thing here, up to the pelvis. There he is. Let's give him some ears. I feel like he would have a sick, like, kind of spiky thing going on. Yeah. There he is. Whoever this guy is. I could draw some, like, let's give him a tank top. He feels like somebody that would be, like, showing off his muscles. It was like baggy towards the middle. And then we'll drop down here to his legs. He can be wearing like cool shoes. This is extra. You don't have to follow along with this part. He's got cool shoes and he's got baggy pants. Because, you know, he's too cool for well-fitting pants. And then he can put on a belt. And then we'll give him like those parkour like arm guard things. And, you know, of course, we still have the hand and the foot tutorial to go over. But if you've been following along with my videos so far, you're pretty much on the right track to drawing just something like this. And I know for a lot of people, getting to this point, getting to this kind of dynamic pose in and of itself is like up there. Even if you're not finishing your line art, even if you're not directly finishing, you know, like a full art piece, getting your sketch out and getting like a result that feels really cool and feels really dynamic can feel way better than, like, you know, spending hours and hours finishing something. You saw how long it took me to do this sketch. It's pretty easy. And you can do it. You know, not necessarily if you're watching all of my tutorials, because I'm just that good, but it's like, art ain't hard. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to hop into stream at any time, even during, you know, my little Halloween event that I've got going on right now. And I will absolutely help you along with any questions that you have, any tips that you need, any like more specifications of like how something works or like how something happened here. All right, closing remarks. Please remember, if you're new here, like, comment, subscribe, all that junk. I stream on weekdays from 4:30 to around 10 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays will vary. Usually longer on Fridays and Saturdays. We are going through our spooky month right now, as you can probably tell through my fantastic outfit that I spent a lot of time on. Please compliment me. I worked really hard on it. We've been playing a lot of spooky games, a lot of itch.io games, a lot of, like, you know, kind of crummy 3D games, and they've been really fun. We've also been working through Signalis as well, which has been a blast. I have been absolutely adoring that game. It's been a long time coming for me to finally play it, but I'm really happy with the way it's coming. I love that game. That game is super awesome. If you're finding this tutorial well after the spooky season, sorry. But I hope whatever streams I've got going on right now are interesting to you. Or maybe you found this, you know, after 74 and I'm long since dead. Who knows? But I hope wherever you are, you have a fantastic rest of your day, that you got something out of this video, and if you did, that's good. That's all I aim to do. Have a good day. Peace out.